Hey, First United in the Gathering Place. We're here with Mark Dunn, who is with the Executive Compensation Group. And Mark, what do you do here?
I'm a financial planner. I work with business owners and individual clients on helping them meet their financial goals.
More than that, Mark is active at First United. He's been with us for years. He served on lots of leadership teams and small groups and all that. He's currently our church treasurer. So if you want to know about church finances, he's the guy. He and Brett work really well together and helping be good stewards of our resources. So we thought we'd talk to him because Amy and I, we may have gone to Duke and we have been trained theologically and in Bible stuff. And there weren't many courses in finances.
Zero.
I had one. She skipped it.
Things have changed.
Things have changed. So we thought it'd be good to talk to somebody who deals with finances on a regular basis and ask him a few questions that we've been talking about. So Amy, what do we got for him?
So the founder of the Methodist movement, John Wesley, in the 1700s, he said something we adapted to: earn all you can, give all you can. No, wait. Earn all you can, save all you can, and then give all you can.
She skipped that class at Duke.
So what do you think? Is this still good advice? Does it hold up?
The short answer is yes. I mean, the simplicity of that is great. However, there's a lot more competition for our dollars these days. We have less disposable income. We have more disposable income, but we have more competition for those dollars. So Scott talks a lot about this in our services, is talking about keeping God first in your finances, and we find that our clients that do that charitable giving is a priority for them and they plan for it. Those are the ones that are most consistent with their giving. We look at it this way, is each month, if you're planning for your future, you're allocating towards your retirement planning. You're putting money towards your 401k plan. You're putting money into your IRAs and your investment accounts. Maybe you're doing college funding savings for your children. Well, charitable giving has to be the same type of thing. It's got to be allocated on a monthly basis. And because if you don't do it that way, what we find is someone gets to the end of the month, end of the year, and they look at what that bucket looks like as far as what their charitable giving potential is, and that bucket's smaller than anticipated. And the reason that's the case is because on a monthly basis, there's things competing for those dollars. So folks that tend to put that giving off till year end, that bucket's smaller than they intended to utilize. So in other words, if they had planned on putting 10% aside for year-end charitable giving, tithing, typically it's not the case because they've utilized assets, and they spent more dollars on other things, and there's not as much left at the end of the year for charitable giving.
So it's earn all you can, give all you can, save all you can. Amy was right.
I was just ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
Ahead of the curve. So one of the things I'll be talking about in the sermon is Paul has this guy, Timothy, that he mentors. And Paul tells Timothy, for the love of money, many people have fallen away from the faith. And just thinking about that, we all make mistakes in finances or because of the love of money. What are some of the common pitfalls you see people falling into about, not because of what they do with their finances, but that love of money stuff? Maybe?
Well, I mean, great question. And we see this a lot in our society. I just saw a recent statistic that showed that credit card debt in 2021 was over $800 billion.
Dang.
Credit card debt. And if you think about it from the standpoint, credit card debt is not just the number, but it's what is the interest rate on that credit card debt.
Let me ask you a question on that.
Yes.
Credit card debt. So if I have a credit card and I pay it off, is that credit card debt? Like if I pay it off, like I put my...
Or is it outstanding?
Good question. The average credit card debt is paid off in 13 months.
Oh, sweet Jesus. 13
months at an average interest rate of 16%. And that 16% sounds like a lot, the credit card interest rate, but it's been over 16% for the last 60 months in a low interest rate environment. So we know interest rates are going to go up this year. So that 16% credit card interest rate is going to go up. So 13 months, 16%, $800 billion in credit card debt. So there's really three things that affect your financial planning. It's what you spend, it's what you save, and debt. And debt is the biggest killer of those other two areas. So, and we see this a lot in high income earners. You know, people think about those folks being in higher debt, that are earn a modest income, and that's not always the case. Typically, it's somebody that earns a high income. Why? Because they buy too big a house, they buy too big a cars, they buy a lot of toys, and they get in debt. And the thing about high income earners is they always feel like they can get out of that debt because they make a lot of money. And so they figure, if I can get my stuff together, get straight with this, I'll be okay. The problem with that is they put it off to later in life. So the 35-year-old that's making a lot of money and buying a lot of toys and they get in debt, well, they might not start doing their true prioritize their financial planning until they get in their 50s, which extends their working life. So those things have a real impact on your future, your retirement plans, your financial independence.
And credit card debt usually comes about because either I haven't planned ahead, so I've got an emergency and I got to take care of it, or I want it now.
Correct. I mean, what's the saying that you buy things that you don't need to try to impress people you don't like?
True.
I mean, we see a lot of that in our society.
Now, this won't make it into the interview at church, but it's going to be online. I love what you just said because it proves me right in the conversation I had yesterday with all these guys about the sermon, because we were talking about one of my lines I'm going to say in the sermon is having more money isn't the answer to your financial problems. It's the wisdom, planning ahead and stuff, right?
And that's a great point. I see folks with a more modest income, blue collar, middle of the road, middle class folks are some of the best planners. And the reason they're some of the best planners is because they can't make mistakes. They don't make the income where they can make the mistakes. And I've got a client right now in his mid 50s. He started contributing to his 401k plan in his mid 20s, and he stayed consistent with it, never deviated. He's got over 1.2 million in his 401k plan now. He's not a high income earner, but he stuck to a plan. He never deviated from it. So that's the key. It's not what you earn, it's the debt that you incur.
Yeah, I own that. Just for later on video, we have when I was 27, I guess, church planner, and our financial guy said, you're going to dump all this money every month consistently, because Dave Ramsey also said, you do this amount. I'm waiting to see those benefits. I've left it in just waiting to see. Every month, though, I pay it.
No question. And high debt, it will be the detriment of your savings. No question.
High debt?
High debt is a detriment of your savings. And there's another statistic back in 2019 that I came across recently, and it stated that the fact that big debt is the biggest deterrent of confidence in somebody getting to a point where they can retire.
Now, does that high debt look like stuff like student loans and credit card bills? What about like mortgage?
Yeah, so there's good debt and there's bad debt.
Yeah.
Good debt is a mortgage you can afford and you get a tax benefit for the interest payment each year. Bad debt is credit card debt, maybe cars that are too much that you don't need, things like that. Student loan debt that you keep putting off and you keep paying that low interest rate, but you keep extending it. So that's what I would consider bad debt.
All right. So as church treasurer, I mean, as I said, you know as much about our church giving and helping us not only be, it's not about the money we take in, it's just like you've been talking about, how the money we spend as well, how we're being good stewards of our resources. So what are some things we need to know about church finances, your thoughts on that, giving, etc.?
Oh, this could be a long answer.
Stay tuned.
So there's really, I think about 3 different areas. I think about congregational giving over the past 2 years during the pandemic. I think about a little bit about the Williamson proceeds, the sale of the Williamson property. And then I think about kind of future planning that 20 plus years out. When we talk about congregational giving over the past 2 years, we've seen consistent giving. We've seen just this past year, 2021, our total giving for the year was over $1 million. And it was about $75,000 below our budgeted revenue. But when you think about the financial uncertainty that all of us were going through, and still to see that number get over $1 million, and with a great job of the team controlling expenses, it was a very successful financial year. But there's some concerns there. We want to continue to see tithing increase. We want to see that percentage continue to go up because things are getting more expensive. We're in the midst of high inflation, and that has an impact on church expenses. That has impact on everything we do at the church. So we don't want to see tithing complacency come into play. And that's one of my concerns.
What's tithing complacency?
Tithing complacency to me is kind of on the next step when we're talking about the number 2 is the Williamson property proceeds. We come into this nice windfall of money from planning 20 plus years ago, but the concern is, to me, is that folks looking at that, the congregation looking at that and say, well, gosh, you've got this $3 $3 to $4 million of proceeds coming in for the church, yes, that's great. However, the tithing we get on a monthly basis goes to the operations of the church, the monthly operation of the church to continue to grow the ministries of the church. What we don't want to do, we want to make sure we're segregating the dollars that are being utilized from the Williamson proceeds from the operational, day-to-day operational budget. The Williamson proceeds are being used really in 4 different areas. Pay off the mortgage of the Halifax campus, mission giving going forward, the growth of the church out west, the gathering place, and making upgrades or improvements to the Halifax campus. That's where those dollars should be allocated to be utilized. And we don't want to get into a place where we're utilizing those dollars for the operational expenses of the church, the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year operations of the church. So I think it's very important that we segregate that, and we have done that. One other thing, too, that we've done is that the finance committee for the church recommended an investment policy statement for the guide team. The guide team approved it. So we're making sure that we're being good stewards of that money to make sure that it's being invested properly for the time frame that we're going to be utilizing those assets potentially in the future. Mm-hmm. And the last thing is having a longer term vision for our assets, for the money that's coming into the church. 20 plus years ago, the church leadership decided to buy the Williamson property. And now 20 years later, we're seeing the benefits of that and the opportunity to really grow the church out west. And I think it's really important that we don't just look at our financial situation in 1, 3, 5 year segments, but we got to start looking out 15, 20 plus years to see how we grow the church for the next generation.
Wow. There you go. See why he's the church treasurer?
A little long-winded, but
hey, you're the best one to talk about it. So my last question is, for those who might not be tithing, and when we say tithe, we talk about this in the story of Jacob, where God promises that he's going to bless Jacob, take care of him, and Jacob promises to give 10% of everything that he earns, everything he's given, back to God. And it's all throughout Scripture too. You see it in Leviticus too, that 10% number. And so for a long time, Christian churches have used this as a benchmark for giving, 10%. But for a lot of folks, they're not giving 10%. And when you jump from giving 0% to 10%, that is a huge jump in your income. So what is your advice for making incremental steps to one day make that a goal?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of that is budgeting. And I think that when somebody looks at it, thinks about a number of 10%, they think, well, there's no way I can do that. But if you start looking at what you're spending money on, you can make those incremental increases. I think it's really important that you narrow down where you're spending money. Are you spending money on things that you need, or are you just spending money on things that you want? I mean, we all have needs. We have needs. We have to pay our mortgage. We have to pay our insurances. We have to pay. We have monthly living expenses. But what are we paying for on our want side? Wants. What are the wants that we're paying for? I think it's if tithing and charitable giving is going to be a priority, you've got to make it a priority. And I think that's the biggest thing. I talk to a lot of my clients from time to time about what they're putting towards their financial independence in the future. And we talk about making incremental increases to those dollars. Again, it gets down to budgeting, looking at where you're spending money. And just because somebody makes a lot of money doesn't mean that they're really good at budgeting their dollars. They need to look at where they're spending money to see if they can get away from spending things on unnecessary wants and putting money towards things that are really should be a priority for them.
One of the things I'm going to say in my sermon, I don't know in yours, is that planning part. It's the intentionality. We talk about that a lot. About you put God first in your finances. So it may start with, if you're at 10%, 10% is a hard goal. I get it. Start at 1%, but you got to know what 1% is. And maybe you can't even start at 1%. Maybe just start at $5 a week and go from there. And see but be intentional about it, kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, and it's an investment. I mean, it's like anything that we put money into, it's an investment. Right. We want to see that increase. So you want to see where those dollars and what kind of impact it's having on other people's lives. So you need to look at that as well. Is this investment? Am I seeing the proceeds from it? Am I seeing something good from it? And yes, we are seeing that at First United. So it's just a matter of digging down to what you're spending money on, look at your needs versus your want, and prioritize tithing and charitable giving.
All right, we got no more questions. What else we need to know? You got the last word.
I think
Which is unusual for a preacher to say.
Yeah, take advantage of this.
I think the church is in a very strong financial position. I think that it's important that we continue to look at ways to increasing our investment in the kingdom of God, and stressing the need for the congregation to be intentional in their giving.
All right. Hey, Mark, thanks very much for this. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.